Good afternoon, friends. This is a short video for those of you who are thinking of taking the cupcake class. There is a list of supplies and a recipe that I have done up for anybody who wants that now ahead of time. But you'll notice a few things on the list that indicate you don't need to have a lot of fancy piping equipment in order to take this class, and that's true. But I thought maybe it might be helpful ahead of time to show you a couple of the little tricks that we can use to decorate cupcakes even if we have minimal equipment. The first thing I am going to show you is how to pipe with a Ziploc freezer bag. I know online you've probably seen demos about using Ziploc bags, and they are wonderful in the kitchen and very handy. But for the piping, I will say you want to make sure you get a freezer style Ziploc bag. Regardless of the brand, it doesn't matter whether it's Ziploc or what have you. But the freezer ones tend to be a heavier duty plastic, and they're going to not burst in the same way that a thinner plastic bag might. Now, there's time if people do want to go and get disposable plastic piping bags. They're inexpensive and you can get them in packs of 50 or 100, and if you have coupons for Joanne or Michael's, you can get them relatively inexpensively. If you do have piping bags, traditional style piping bags, great. But like I said, you don't need to have those. We can do with this. And I'll show you. We're going to take the bag and we're going to fold it into a triangle shape, sort of like so. So that edge is coming up to one of the side edges. So the bottom is coming up to the side. Does that make sense? I'm doing this backwards, so to me it's a little awkward, and I'm not a professional video person, so bear with me. Once we have that lined up, we can take a piece of duct tape and attach it. So for example, we'll do this one right here and now. You want to make sure your piece of duct tape is not super long, and then you'd have to be trimming and so on. So we're going to take that bottom edge, bring it right up to the side like so, get that little triangle happening, and then take our duct tape, half of it on the back, half of it on the front, like so. And there we go. Now this is a closed bag because we haven't snipped the tip yet. So this is going to be wonderful for filling where you have the Ziploc top. You're not going to get a lot of icing coming out of the top. With a standard bag, you really have to twist tie the top and hold it to make sure that the icing isn't going to come out. But with a Ziploc bag, it kind of does some of that work for you, which is awesome. Now, I've got two bags here ready to go, and I have some icing. I have tried piping out of one of these, but one thing I have never tried before is to put a tip in it. So I'm going to do that right now, and we'll see if it actually works. I've got just a little piping tip again, which you do not need. We're going to tip one bag and not tip the other, but we're going to snip the tips off. Now this point here is doubled over, so what you'll notice is the hole is a little bigger than you think it's going to be. So one thing you want to do is start with a little bit. If you want to make the hole bigger, it's going to be easy to do. But if you cut the hole too big to start with, then you're going to have a big hole regardless, and you might have to start all over. So this is the one I made a bigger hole. I'm going to put my tip in there. You can see it's sort of halfway along the tip. And then this one, I've just taken this, snipped that tip off, and I've made it sort of a medium-sized hole. It's not a really tiny hole for writing, but it's not a big hole that's going to make big mounds. So the second thing you want to do is grab a drinking glass, something heavy, something tall. We're going to put the bag in and roll the edges over the top. This is going to help us to be able to put the icing in and have both hands free. A mason jar will work, something that's got a little bit of heft to it so that it can support the weight with a bit of icing. Another thing we want to do is take our icing, kind of give it a little bit of a smooshing action back and forth, just like that. That's going to help take some of the bubbles out of the icing. It's pretty hard to mix a batch of icing and not have any bubbles in it at all. And if you're using a medium icing, tapping it on the counter isn't going to get all the bubbles out. So a few little swipes back and forth is going to help us to get some of those bubbles out. And you can see how easy it is to fill the bag when it's being held by the glass. Now we can slide that closed, push all of the icing to the edge. I'm going to do the one with the tip as well so that we can see how well the two of them work. Again, a little back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Put some in there. Just 3 big swipes. When working with buttercream icing, American style buttercream icing, it has icing sugar in it. So any icing that you are not using, it's good to keep a lid on or a damp cloth, something to keep it from crusting over. So we'll ziplock this one as well, pushing that icing down to the tip. So we now have 2 bags of icing in Ziploc freezer bags, one with a tip and one without. Now, we take the bag so that we're holding it like a traditional piping bag, pushing some of that icing onto the tip, and then I'm going to use the top of my icing container to just demonstrate how we can make a little mound of icing or even little dots with our bag. I mean, this is kind of a heavy duty line there, but you can see you can still get a little bit of detail happening even with a Ziploc bag. Now, for curiosity's sake, let's see what happens as we pipe with the tip. Is the tip going to shoot out the bag? I have no idea. We're going to find out though. So, well, there we go, piping. Tip is staying put. So the plastic in the bag is perfectly fine for, let's do a little rosette. Nice. So there we go. You can see it's a little awkward looking. It's sort of at a jaunty angle, but it works. The last little tip I'm going to give you for this video is to use parchment paper. Now this is not going to work for your actual piping with icing. If you have a tiny bit of very thin icing and you want to do a little bit of lettering, you might be able to get away with this, but it's really better if you melt a little bit of chocolate and you want to do the reindeer antlers. You can take a square piece of the paper, cut that into a triangle, and this triangle can become a piping bag. Now this is a little big for the chocolate, so we're going to do it in half again. Fold it in half and cut it into a triangle. I'm making an awfully messy triangle here, but there we have it. So there's a triangular piece of parchment paper. Just for the sake of clarity, I'm going to write on the corners 1, 2, and 3. You can see there, 1, 2, and 3 on the corners. In order to make a bag that we can pipe some chocolate in, I'm going to take number 1, I think I did them backwards, and bring it around so that the 1 is facing you. So we now have what's starting to look like a bag. Number 3 is now going to come around and go behind number 2 so So now we have 1, 2, and 3 in behind. I don't know if that makes sense, but you can sort of see there's my 1, there's my 2, and there's my 3. By raising 1 and 3 up and down, you can start to close the hole that forms down in the bottom. And the more closed it is, it's going to hold your chocolate while you're waiting for it to cool a little bit or to get ready to pipe. Now, to hold this bag together, you can use a staple, obviously, but I don't like to have little sharp bits of metal near my hands. What I do is fold it over. So that edge is now folded over, and then I take a couple of little tears and make a notch and fold the notch in, sort of like so. That's not holding. And I do one on each side so that they will hold. Like I said, I'm not a professional at this video stuff. I can see what I'm doing, but getting you to see what I'm doing is another story altogether. So you can see now there's 2 notches just quickly made in the bag that's going to hold it closed without me having to hold it. And again, there's your cup. You can use that when you're filling it with some chocolate. We're going to use these bags in the class. If you feel like melting the chocolate to make the antlers, we have another option for the antlers if you don't want to melt the chocolate. So there we have how to fill and use some freezer bags with or without a tip, and how to make a parchment triangle bag for your chocolate. I hope to see you on the 5th for the cupcake class, and have a wonderful rest of the day, my friends. Mwah. Bye.